Welcome to CPG Vibes. No scripts,
just chat.
I'm Alex Baer.
And I'm Wade Yenny.
Each episode is recorded live, and we talk all things food and beverage, and so much more.
Feel our vibe and search for CPG Vibes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and make sure to give us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to sponsor our show with your product or service, email us at cpgvibes100@gmail.com.
Now, let's vibe.
All right, welcome to episode 164 of CPG Vibes. Hope everyone is doing well out there. This is our Master Series, Volume 6. And as you can easily notice, there is no co-host today. So Wade is somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic somewhere. He's on a cruise. He's on vacation for a short amount of time because he's very busy and he has a lot of workload. And so it's just going to be me today. But then I'm going to be bringing on 3 great guests. I'm going to be bringing on Will Nitze with IQ Bar, Jeff Church with DreamMakers, and also the previous co-founder of Suja, and Steve Odell, who I believe is a first-time guest on this show, CPG Vibes, and he is the founder of Tenzo, which makes matcha, the best matcha ever. So I'll be bringing him on in about 5 or 10 minutes. It's never easy doing the show on your own because you have no one to talk to, right? So I can't bounce anything off anyone. I'm just going to go through my laundry list items here and keep it on script as much as I can so I don't screw anything up. So it's a good test to see how I do here, and I'm up for the challenge. So make sure to give us 5 stars. Go to Apple Podcast. You can do that by going to Apple Podcast and then clicking on CPG Vibes and then going down to the bottom and hitting 5 stars. We are the #1 rated CPG podcast in the world. Make sure to keep us that way and give us 5 stars. We also have the sponsor for this week, and that is Robert Kogan with Powerful Energy Distribution. They basically will find brands and they will help you get into Canada. And he handles kind of that Golden Horseshoe area, which is Ontario, Toronto. He's very good at what he does. He works with a ton of emerging and natural brands. So make sure to reach out to Robert Kogan for that. It's making sure I'm not muted here. That'd be a disaster, wouldn't it? All right. And then, because Wade last week was funny, so he popped in before me and he was muted for a minute. So I want to make sure I don't make the same mistake as he did. We have our back wall sponsors. So we'd like to thank, especially, I'm going to mention him first, Jeff Church. So he's a sponsor of our show, and you can see the DreamMakers logo in the background there. He has an accelerator, and Jeff just sent out an email. I saw it today about his next cohort program, which he'll get into more about. The first one happened last fall. The next one is this fall, 2025. So if you'd like to be a part of his cohort and learn a ton about literally a guy that has so much experience in operations, sales, and also raising capital. And he's the original co-founder of Suja and the CEO. And then they sold to a private equity firm. So he knows his stuff. Make sure to be part of his cohort this fall, and he'll talk about how to sign up for that. Our other sponsors are Melting Forest and also Feel Free. Let's see, am I missing anything else? We have our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@CPGVibes. And if you'd like to sponsor one of our episodes, make sure to email cpgvibes100@gmail.com. So I think that is basically it. I'm not going to spend any more time blabbing too much. I'm going to be bringing these guys on in about 30 seconds here. And so in no particular order. And again, if you're just tuning in, this is our Master Series episode, Volume 6, but it is no script, just chat. Could go in a lot of different directions. And that's why people tune in, because we don't know what the hell we're doing. So in no particular order, we have Will Nitze with IQ Bar. We have Jeff Church with DreamMakers. And we have Steve Odell with Tenzo. How's it going, guys?
Hey, going good.
Going good. You hear us okay?
Yep. I can hear you, everyone, loud and clear. I was really paranoid that I muted my mic, and I had to go back and make sure that I didn't, because that's a classic mistake that happens on StreamYard here. We love StreamYard, our streaming software, but sometimes we screw it up and we don't do the right thing. So and then Steve, you're a first time. I know you were on our 15 Minutes of Genius, the last podcast I had. But you're a first timer here, so welcome to our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Got a good group of guys here.
For sure, a lot of brain power brewing in this room right now, and a lot to talk about. So make sure to tune in, and also there's going to be some prizes at the end of the episode. There's going to be an IQ Bar variety pack, and then also a special prize from Tenzo, which makes some of the best, probably the best matcha that I've had. So make sure to stay tuned in. At the end of this episode, we're going to ask a question. If you answer it correctly, you will win either the IQ bars or the matcha, the Tenzo. So what we're going to do now is just go clockwise. It's a tradition on the show. And introduce yourself, where you're from, what company you're with, which everyone already knows, and then say something about yourself. And I think, Jeff, this is your third time now having to do this, come up with new things that people don't know about. It's hard after a couple. So, but just come up with, tell us something about yourself that almost really no one knows, maybe a few people. So we'll start with you. Welcome to our show.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Will Nitze. I live in Miami Beach. Been here about 18 months. I was in Boston for 10 years before that. Originally from New Jersey. I'm the founder and CEO of IQ Bar. We make brain and body nutrition products, bars being the hero line, but we also do hydration and coffee. 7 years in. Still a lot to learn, but have accrued a few learnings along the way. Something maybe people don't know, and I apologize if I did this last time. Maybe I gave the same answer, but I lived in South Africa in 2010 for a year. So I went to the World Cup and lived in this spot in downtown Cape Town, and it was a wild year. I won't get into the specifics. They're probably not fit for this platform, but that's something about me.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think you said that last time. It doesn't okay, ring a bell, or I have memory loss. So who knows? It's one of the two. Jeff, welcome to our show. Same questions to you.
Thanks, Alex. Nice to be here again. So my background is 30 years of being a serial entrepreneur. During that time, I've had 8 companies that I've either acquired or started, of which have been 2 or 3 in CPG. It's been CPG for the last 15 years, which has been something that I've really loved, because I love, the fact that you can talk to people about products that they're kind of interested in, as opposed to industrial products maybe you never see because they're buried up in the ceiling somewhere. But I really enjoy CPG, and I really enjoy the creativity of kind of the cul-de-sac innovation side of it. Now I have one of the brands that I started was Suja juice that Alex mentioned, and it was a learning laboratory of mistakes by Jeff for about 10 years. And fortunately, we made enough good decisions that we made it, but we definitely looked over into the abyss 4 or 5 times before we eventually made it. So now what I do is I work with early stage founders and middle stage founders to help them improve their odds of success in CPG, and help them hopefully avoid some of the mistakes that I've made over the years, and that a lot of us have made, because it's a language that you have to learn. And if you have to learn it on your own nickel, it can be really expensive. So right now I have a boot camp that runs all the time, and it's kind of self-administered. It's about 30 hours of narration by me. And then I run an accelerator in the fall that I just started marketing for here this week. And basically that's a 13-week accelerator. There's a pitch slam for retailers. There's a pitch slam for investors. There's really great speakers. I think 13 different speakers that come in, and then a really great group of 15 founders. So, I'm looking for founders now that have an interest in participating. You can either ping me on LinkedIn or go to DreamMakersHQ.com, Jeff at DreamMakersHQ.com. You can get me there. But Something that you may not know about me. Again, I might have said this one too, but I've climbed five of the 7 summits, the 7 tallest mountains on each of the continents, and just got my 6th a couple of weeks ago. Although it wasn't a summit, but I went with my kids to Everest Base Camp, and that was a great experience to be able to do that. So it wasn't a summit, but it's a 6 with an asterisk now, the way I'm looking at it.
Nice. And it was really cool because you sent an email out with a picture of you at the top of or at the base somewhere at Everest, and it was cool to see. And you're at number 6 now, right? You're at 6.
Yeah, that's 6. Yeah.
So I got to ask you, and we'll go to Steve. 2 things I'll say. Number one, on the Suja side, I always, out of interest, would go to the part of the website on Suja. I don't know if it's still there, called the Graveyard.
No, that was our favorite. Bell Community did that. That was the best. It was a graveyard.
All the products that you guys tried in retail and didn't succeed, and there was tens of, I think, or maybe even over 100 SKUs in there at some point. But it shows you that you got to really throw a lot of darts to get a couple to stick, right?
Yeah. Well, funny story on that is we averaged over like 9 years launching a new SKU, and some of them were extensions and some were like whole new product lines, but a new SKU every 8 days over those 10 years. And we did our own manufacturing, but we killed one every about 16 days.
Okay.
So we had this growing gap over the years that eventually some people thought I was causing churn. I just was faking it until I made it. Because until you can get products that are well above the minimum velocity,
right,
or median velocity levels, you're not winning at the shelf. You're just maybe getting more distribution.
Yeah. So I felt that was really interesting, and there's a lot to talk about there. And I've been a long-time fan of Suja. When I first saw it in my Whole Foods in Torrance here, and I saw the Vanilla Cloud, which I know the reasons why you couldn't continue making that one.
Yeah.
But for the OG Suja fans, the Vanilla Cloud was one of the best fucking SKUs from Suja that I've ever had. And I don't know how you breathed up there, but you probably brought oxygen with you, right?
No, not at that level. A couple thousand feet higher.
Okay. All right. So, Steve, welcome. Thanks for being patient. Welcome to our show. What's going on, my man?
Yeah, I'm Steve Odell. I'm one of the founders of Tenzo. We're a matcha brand, omni-channel, and been doing it for 8 years now. It feels like forever, but it's been a really good run. And something you don't know about me, I was a very competitive athlete growing up. Played volleyball from a really young age, and actually got a full ride to UCLA to play on the men's team there. I was very lucky because I was born and raised in Rochester, New York, and Los Angeles, and California in general was like the coolest place in the world growing up to me. So, but yeah, I feel like sports and business obviously go hand in hand, but a lot of good lessons on that. And then, just excited to be here.
Cool. And it was very cool because last week was the Coffee Specialty Expo, and I was helping my wife out there, and I got locked out of our Airbnb. So last week I was outside roaming the streets of Houston. For those that tuned in on my phone with a video, never had that happen before. But anyway, what I'm getting at is at the Specialty Coffee Expo, I was walking down the aisle, and then I saw Steve and his booth for Tenzo, and we struck up a conversation. I've known you for years, obviously, and I should have been wearing that hoodie, the Tenzo hoodie.
Yeah, you should tell everybody it's the best hoodie you have, Alex.
It's amazing. They give away these amazing hoodies with the Tenzo logo all over, like a pattern, and it's so comfortable. So next time I'm gonna wear it at the specialty show. But
Nice.
I asked him to be on the show, and he's like, "Hell yeah, let's do this!" And here we are. And then I want to mention one other thing before getting into questions. And we'd be remiss not to mention this, but the Beverage Forum happened this week in Manhattan Beach. It's near El Segundo, basically, right across the street. And phenomenal event. I don't know if any of you guys made it out to the event at all, but
unfortunately,
yeah, it was crazy. Just everyone, most people imaginable in the space was there. Near the first tee, because they have a little golf course behind the hotel where people are hanging out and having drinks. Jack Sinclair, the CEO of Sprouts, was just there, like hanging out. the head forager for Sprouts was there, and it's countless and countless people. But one thing I'll mention that's very interesting is they had a hole-in-one contest during happy hour on the first day, which was Tuesday of this week. And whoever made a hole-in-one on a 140-yard par 3 would win a Rivian, an $80,000 Rivian. And so, and I'll stop blabbing in a sec, but there were like 50, 60, 70 people trying. And so I brought my own clubs. I was the only one that brought my own clubs. I was like measuring the wind beforehand, and I was using the rangefinder to see exactly the yardage. I mean, I play golf. I'm like, this is a Rivian we're talking about. I'm not going to show up with a rented pair of clubs here. And a bunch of people went, a bunch of people hit in the water, and then Danny Stepper, LA Libations, he hit it into the sand. Mine was, I don't want to be braggadocious, but I'm going to be. It was the best shot of the day that had the highest chance of going in the hole. It did not go in the hole. It went straight and rolled up, and it rolled past the hole 5 feet to the right and went on the fringe. And they had all this pressure because they had over 100 people on, the balcony or at the veranda of the hotel overlooking the golf course watching. Plus the CEO of Sprouts is watching, Wayne Wu is watching with his crazy pants. Like everyone's there watching. And I was able to keep it together and do a good shot. So anyway, I'm just giving myself a little pat on the back for that one.
Good job.
I didn't win the car.
I would have worm burned it off the tee and into the water.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we had many of those. One person almost got hit because they hit it off the tee and they chunked it, and it went straight right over the cameraman's head, the guy taking pictures. So yeah, it's anyway. All right, so let's get into, we won't talk about golf for the whole episode, I promise. So let's get into some questions. I think a question really relating more to Jeff, I want to start with you and then go to Will after that, is on the fundraising side. I want to start with that, with the economic challenges that are happening right now and people being concerned about capital, cash flow, spending extra money if there's tariffs. I just want to hear from you on just general high-level strategy on what to think about now when it comes to fundraising. What are some strategies there, and what have you learned in your tenure in raising capital that you can share with the community here?
Well, first is don't run out. That's the first and foremost one, right? And don't wait too long to, it usually takes, and in these kind of markets, it takes a little bit longer, to get stuff done. So it takes 3 to 4 months to get a fundraising round done. And then I think people, for whatever reason, it's an acquired, a skill. I think the fundraising, and people think that they can't do it, but you can do it. It's just like a muscle you have to work to learn. And, you want to think about it that, you got to kiss 100 frogs to, find, potentially 20 princes to get serious about 7 or 8 to close 2 or 3. And you want to keep them in the pipeline at different stages so that you don't have a big, gap in one of those stages and all of a sudden you're waiting, because you can't over speed it up, because if you do, you come off sounding anxious to potential investors. So you kind of have to leave it every couple of weeks. You're getting back to the person. And if you let it get empty in the front end, then when you do start doing it again, you're going to have a big lag in there. And it's really a function of numbers. It's also a function of you have to get comfortable with asking, your friends and people that well, not so much family members, but friends that have the capital and have the wherewithal. You have to be comfortable with the perspective that you're giving them an opportunity to invest in this opportunity of yours, versus thinking about it. Look, I didn't want to go to this person because I didn't want them to invest in me, and then all of a sudden I lose the money and then I've screwed up a relationship. You have to look at it the other way. That I'd be pissed off if I was a high net worth person looking to make investments and you didn't come to me because you thought you didn't want to jeopardize our friendship. Let me be the person that makes that decision on whether or not I want to invest or not. So I think it's you got to be comfortable. I think what's happened is with all this, with the fundraising markets, is the VC firms and the private equities, they're on their 3rd, 4th, 5th fund now. So they've gone up in check size because their funds are larger. and they're writing larger deals. And they've gone up in proof of concept. I now know a couple of them that want 2 or 3 different channels of proof of concept. So unless you really have that proof of concept, the odds are you're going to end up, with angels. And so you have to be able to tap your network of angels, and you have to be comfortable thinking, who are my parents' friends? Who are my, fraternity or sorority, friends, that I had in college? Who are my friends at my first job at General Mills that I worked for 10 years at? Who are my bosses there? All those people are candidates for being investors in your business. And if you don't tap them, you're going to have a much harder time with cold people, because angels don't transfer real well between my angels don't transfer to your angels, and vice versa, because they're really betting on the person and the specific product. So you really do want to tap and have somebody push you on, go through your LinkedIn's and just, look at who's in your LinkedIn's, but you have to be really judicious about it and really thorough about it, because if you don't, you're just not going to be sending it to enough people. And it's generally a waste of time to send stuff to VCs or PE funds too early. Now, it's not a waste from one perspective, that you get on their radar, and getting on their radar allows you the opportunity to show them what you're going to do. And then you can go back a year later, and if you've hit that or exceeded that, then it helps enhance your credibility. If you haven't hit it, then it obviously goes the other way. But that's the only real reason to go to these groups now. Even though they'll say they'll do seed or pre-seed rounds, they hardly ever will do that. So it's really an angel game. It's angels that
Yep, 100%. Some great advice there. Will, to you, same question.
First of all, a lot of commentary from the peanut gallery on my mic color. And in my defense, this mic was a gift. It was free. So I'm just going to defend the lime green mic, mostly from Mark Samuel. I would say look at it like you should look at anything, which is look at it from first principles. Starting with what are you trying to build? Like, you have to work backwards from that. Are you trying to build a lifestyle business, a high growth business, an insanely high growth business? The categories you've selected, what is the gross margin profile? If it's lower, you're going to need more money. If it's higher, you're going to need less money. How quickly do you think you can get to scale? If quicker, you need less money. If not that quick, we need more money. So take all of the inputs into your model, and then also don't just game out what the first chunk of money you're going to need is, because you're probably going to need multiple. Game out all of them, right? Like, create an entire waterfall scenario, which will be wrong, by the way, but you're just going to keep, like any model, a wrong model is better than no model. And you're going to keep refining that model, and you're not going to raise it the valuation you thought, but then you'll change the model. So for me, I can only speak to myself. For me, it was, okay, I want to own 50.1% or more, meaning just really, I want to control my destiny. I want to control the company. So, okay, if that is true, what valuations would I have to raise at, and how many dollars would I have to take in across how many tranches? And then what would I have to do in between those raises to then justify that step change up, second valuation, third valuation, fourth, et cetera. And then the other key input, which often is overlooked and is a kind of a component of luck in this whole game, is just what's the macro environment, right? It was a very different environment in 2018 than it was in 2022 than it is now. And so the current market, from what I gather, it's all the institutional money has gone upstream, like what Jeff was talking about. And if you have a profitable high growth company, like every growth equity firm and their mother is giving you a call, and they're desperate to give you $30 million and whatnot. So, but early stage, not so much. Whereas when I started, early stage was actually pretty hot, right? So that's just a little bit of a luck thing, but also to Jeff's point, I agree on the angel thing. Money is money. Everyone's money is just as green as everyone else's money. And quite frankly, raising from angels is, in my opinion, better in almost every way. I've said this to institutional investors of ours. If I could raise from angels forever, I would do that. It just so happens that there are only so many people who can write a $200K check, right? Or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So you gotta go into institutional, because that's where all the money is. But also understand what you want from that money, and vice versa, because you're getting in bed with these folks. And it's very different if you just want money at the highest valuation than if you want strategic help or if you want a certain set of terms and all that. So like the macro of all this is like you have to game out all the contextual elements before you even start. And then once you start, it's what Jeff said, right? Like create a list, and it's a numbers game, and you just have to be shameless and all that. But I'll stop there. I'm sure Steve's got some good insights on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to pivot to Steve, and then also just a really quick comment. And yeah, Steve, thanks for being super patient here. Mark, just, it's like the Rib brothers, right? You're ribbing each other. The phrase peanut gallery is one of the most underrated terms, and I'm glad Will brought it up. With that said, I'm watching this on mute while eating mushrooms, and it's fucking amazing. There we go. Very, very Mark Samuel-esque. So Steve, I want to pivot to a topic that I think really heavily relates to what you're doing in the market, which is the food service side. There's been a lot more emphasis on how can I build a sustainable business, have better margins, not have to go with these big national distributors until it's really 100% necessary to preserve better margins and minimize, you can't eliminate, but minimize chargebacks. From what I understand about your business, and tell us more, you focus heavily on food service and other areas and channels that are not, let's say, typical for like food and beverage, right? Like a sparkling soda or something like that. Can you tell us more about what channels you've pursued and how that's really affected your margin and like your business overall? And then any tips for the community on how to get into food service and what you've done to be successful?
Yeah. We have a pretty unique background. Like I was a senior in college when we started. I basically the most unsophisticated entrepreneur. So what Will just described was something that I had no conception of. And so basically all we did was like, we started Matcha, it's lightweight, easy to ship. We thought e-com was going to be good. And so we started doing e-com and learned how to do Facebook ads and scaled that up. And then we went the whole angel route, which Jeff was describing, and took 5K checks from our friends and family and everyone possible. And then one day we were just working in a cafe, and we were like, maybe we could sell matcha to this cafe. Matcha wasn't in food service yet at all. It wasn't in Starbucks or Dunkin'. It was literally, most people had no idea what it was. And this is, 8.5 years ago. So then we started doing food service, and like it was just boots on the ground. This is literally me, my business partner, brought in a couple of our friends, going and pitching the cafes, and they would say, why would we ever take matcha in a cafe? And we'd be like, hey, we'll just give you a bag. We'll come on Saturday from 10 to noon and demo it. And so we did that, and grew like a nice little base, moved up from 10 accounts, 50, 100, moved into distributors. Very hyper localized, and kind of build up this system of leverage over time. Very similar to how other founders talk about retail rollouts. You start with Costco regional and expand. But so we did all that, and then we started buying like quite a lot of matcha, and we picked up this other channel, which is just ingredients. So matcha is a flavor and ice creams, cakes, cookies. And we started selling matcha as an ingredient to companies all the way from Unilever down to mom and pop brands. And we found that all of these things ended up being extremely good for the business, and then, got absolutely punched in the face when COVID hit, but our e-com business blossomed. But, basically like 3 years of work was like out the window when the pandemic hit. So our e-com business boomed, and that was really good. And then e-com's obviously gotten a lot more challenging lately, and food services like really blossomed with matcha coming mainstream. But like if you're just starting out in food service, it's literally very similar to retail. You pound pavement in a local region and let that lever you up into a distributor, and then keep leveraging up to bigger and bigger distributors along the way. That's the 1,000-foot view.
Got it. And really, part of like what I notice about your business model is the e-commerce and how to get people to buy it and do conversions. And these are things I'm not an expert on. But you're better at it because you have a successful business with an emphasis on e-commerce. This gentleman in the upper right corner that Mark is watching while eating mushrooms and commenting on his lime green mic, he also is an expert in e-commerce. And I remember, Will, like when I saw your brand the first time, in the trending ingredients and all that, and better for you, functional for the mind and the body. I was like, will this go? Because it needs a lot of education. It's different. It's a category that's growing, but it's different. What did you do online to like get that education? And like, how did you take a brand that was like at one point obviously small and blow it up so much on Amazon? Like, can you share some tips or what you did, or because obviously you're seeing millions of dollars in sales on there, and other entrepreneurs want what you have. So tell us.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say I think it's something like $92 out of 100 of grocery items are bought in brick and mortar, like in America. If you look at all the grocery items bought, it's like over 9 out of 10 go to brick and mortar. And so there's always this bias for brick and mortar. But I would say that 8 out of 10 is where you should start if you can, if you're selling especially a lightweight shelf stable thing. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Number one, you're going, like, what you start with is not what you're going to end with. It's not even going to be what you're in the middle period with. You're going to iterate 10 times to get from that first, especially if you're a first time founder and you don't really know what you're doing, which was the case with me. You're going to iterate 10 times. And how do you make sure that iteration is really, really well informed and is getting you closer and closer and closer to product market fit? You use data. Where's the most data? Online, not in brick and mortar, right? Online has so many more data points than brick and mortar. It's not even funny, right? So you can get such rich data and feedback. And it just starts with like straight up feedback, right? Reviews. I hate this. This isn't sweet enough, whatever. Like, you get 10 of the same comment, probably the comment has some salience. And then that informs your model of how do you iterate. And you're always, of course, you shouldn't let the tail wag the dog. Like, if fixing one thing over here alienates a huge group of people, well, you have to weigh that trade-off. But if I can improve one thing here and it doesn't piss off people over here, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it again and again and again. And then 10 iterations later, you found product market fit. Now take the analog of brick and mortar. You just plain cannot do that in brick and mortar. I mean, you can, I guess, but your cycles are 10x slower probably, right? Because it's just slower to get something on a shelf. Whereas today, like in an hour, I could get an Amazon listing up, start selling, and start getting feedback like right away. So basically we just listen to the market. The other thing is, like, don't be emotional about your product, right? So there's this whole thing, this romantic thing of, I created a product for myself and I knew there are other people like me. I think it's like the worst advice of all time. Like, you are not the market. And if you want to build a big company, forget you. You're irrelevant. What does the market want? And they'll tell you if you ask them. And so we just started hearing feedback of, I wish there was more protein. Could you formulate this out? And we zeroed in like why people are buying the product. Oftentimes I'm shocked at how often people literally don't know why people are buying their product, and they have a conception why, but that's not even really why. Mm-hmm. And again, people will tell you. So we found, we got a little lucky that we were keto compliant. And that was like, we thought the fourth most important thing. It turned out it was the number one most important thing for that period of time when keto was hot. Like, and we could have been emotional about it and been like, no, that wasn't why we started this. Let's not lean into that. But we were like, no, let's be pragmatic and let's hammer that, right? And let's ride that trend. And so I guess it's a long-winded way of saying we listened to the market and iterated into the most mass market appeal, positioning, product, call out hierarchy, etc., that is still true to like the original mission and coherent with the brand.
Yeah. I think like the takeaway I have from what you just said is you can't be overly attached to a certain thing about your product that you feel is the best and something that customers are going to like. So you have to be literally like a sponge as the product gets out there and you're getting this feedback. And then because you're smaller, you could be agile and make the changes that need to be made that people are going to be receptive to and then buy the product. How did you, and I'm going to go to Jeff in a second, but how did you know that this whole thing with, I guess research, right, and data, it's probably a dumb question, but I'll ask it anyway because that's what we do on the show. Calling it IQ bar, having functional ingredients that help the brain 7-8 years ago was pretty pretty nascent, right? This concept. How did you know that this was going to be a trend that would take off? Like, what convinced you to pull the trigger and say, yes, let's go in this functional direction?
It isn't a trend, and it didn't really take off for our specific product set. This is like what's such kind of counterintuitive, right? And you only know this by getting all this feedback. And so there's a sequence of events that the consumer cycles through when they buy anything. And the bar set, generally speaking, they start with protein and sugar. Oftentimes they'll care about source of protein. Is it whey? Is it plant-based? Label cleanliness, price, taste, right? So they're going to cycle through all those things. That's what the bar buyer does. Now that's different than the chip buyer. And the same person, might be shop chips differently than they shop bars, but you have to check before you can even tell that sort of nuanced story of like brain plus body nutrition. Right? So someone's typing in plant protein bars. I still need to come up for me to even have the opportunity to pitch you on this like kind of interesting, nuanced, functional side. But that's not like, you might look at it and say, oh, you're winning all these consumers because they're interested in a brain bar. No, not at all. Right? That's like the fifth consideration. It's like the door closer, not the door opener. So order of operations of call outs, value props, et cetera, is like insanely important. And this gets down to like quite literally how big is the font of the call out. And Rich, who's watching, like does the whole eye tracking thing. And like, you have to get deeply entrenched with consumer psychology and how they shop your category. Your category, every category is shopped in a very specific way. Bars being one in which people nerd out especially high on, right? Super label readery category. So it's important. It's a door closer. It's a differentiator. Helps you get distribution, yada, yada, yada. But it's actually not the first, second, or third reason people are consuming the product.
Yeah, makes sense. So the protein, the macro ingredients, macro nutrition, you get them to notice it. And then as they're considering it, it kind of pushes them to put it in their cart with the brain benefits of it. Okay, makes perfect sense. It's genius.
Can I add something onto that?
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Don't mind. Some of the topics that Will's been talking about are performance marketing. That is the type of marketing you can do when you're selling online. And it's really a great way to do marketing, because you get to see cause and effect, and you get to see, if you do this, what kind of a return did you get? Whereas traditional CPG marketing is a lot of times away from the shelf. And the further you go away from the shelf, maybe the more meaningful it can be if you get to the right person, but the harder it is to get to the right person. And the problem I've always had with marketing, first of all, there's so many different levers to pull for traditional CPG marketing, and very, very few of them are you able to really look at an ROI. And when you do look at ROIs, those ROIs typically aren't very good. And most marketing people will do ROIs based on a return on sales versus a return on profit, which really isn't an ROI. And it's because it's even worse if you do it as a return on profit. But the performance side of it, that's why I'm also a huge fan of the online. And I do think you need to have both really to be, effective and to really sell your company. I mean, there are some businesses that can do pure plays, but I think those are few and far between. And I think certainly we're seeing, going back to, being more, of a well-rounded, player. But, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm innovating new products is I'm looking at the reviews, like Will was saying, and I'll actually take the reviews from a whole bunch of competitors, and they're in an area that I'm innovating, and I'll put those into ChatGPT now and run those through there and ask it, explain what my business is about, and then I'll ask, I'll put the notes in there from the reviews. Then I'll ask it, who's vulnerable, where are they vulnerable, and what would you do, to our product different? And it actually gets some pretty good results. So, I think that's a cool thing to do. And then the other thing, I knew there'd be cliffs at like $40, $30, $20 when you drop below. But at least with the beverage products, when you drop below 30 from even if it's 31 to 29, it's a major cliff, and you get a big spike in volume, and that's another reason why you want to get your COGS down as quick as you can, because the lower you can get those COGS, the more you can enjoy that. And if you can get into that space, you're going to generate some revenue.
Yeah, definitely. Well said, Jeff. So if you have a product, right, like, going to Steve, just like with Will, where it's a very D2C friendly product, right? It's light, it's compact, it's not incredibly sensitive to temperature, whether it's hot or cold. Would you recommend to brands out there to start in D2C, get that data, and then parlay that into retail?
Yeah,
Obviously, but what do you think about that?
100%. I think that's even like before you start, you should say, does this product make sense at all? Like, I think I totally agree with Will. I think a lot of founders are like really invested in like this notion of themselves and the story. And if you want to build a small business and do whatever, that's totally fine. And you can build a company like that. But if you're tied into this larger theme or story or exit or just building $100 million company and making $15 million a year, then you got to validate that that's actually going to get there, and that you have a product and market that can get there, and customers that are going to buy it, like it, and enjoy it. But I feel like everyone, even when I want to like test potentially starting a new brand, I'll just like spin up a Shopify site, put $100 into Facebook ads, and like if anyone buys it, great. You can just refund them, and then you have a little like kind of base to go off of.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like it's almost fun. Like you can test things out. Obviously, you got to make the product first and all that. But if you can do a low order quantity with your co-packer or make it yourself, it's amazing that you can just. I know it's cliche to say this: launch a site, put it up, put some ads up, and get immediate feedback within like a week. Where when you launch in retail, like I think you were saying earlier, Steve, it takes, number one, 4 to 6 months even to get in. And then when you actually get in, you're so far away from the customer that you're not getting accurate data about their feedback unless you're doing a demo. And founders just can't be camped out in stores doing demos because it's not an efficient use of time. I want to pivot to something that I know we're fatigued on talking about, but I want to hear how it's affecting your business. And then Jeff, I want to hear how you're advising your cohorts and brands that you're consulting. It's about tariffs, right? T word here. And there's a wait and see component to this. There's also tariffs in place. Will they stay in place? Will they be negotiated? All these things, a lot of uncertainty right now. So going to you, I'm going to stay with you, Steve. Given that, I think with Japan, what's the status with them? Because you source from Japan, right? For your
module. We're on the 10% reciprocal tariff right now.
Okay. Are you raising prices at all or doing anything different or no?
We're doing a little bit of everything. Just mostly evaluating the situation and using it as an opportunity to take market share.
There you go. Yeah, because you're big enough to where you can weather the storm, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, which is a key reason to grow your business, right? You get leverage. That's a very beautiful word.
That's what all seasoned founders, I feel like everyone just focuses on stacking strategic leverage over time.
Yep. So going to you, Jeff, what are you telling your brands? I mean, I'm sure they're, for a brand that's made in America where they don't have a lot to worry about right now, but there's always something made overseas, let's say the packaging or the label. What are you telling your founders to do? Is it a wait and see? Is it take some action? Tell us more about what your dialogue with your.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about, in a global sense, I don't view it as a huge negative. I mean, it is a negative for sure. But if you really do the math on your ingredient, components versus, your co-man costs versus your packaging, container related costs, you're probably talking about a third, of your cost structure. And, if that's going up 10%, which it's not on everything, of course, so say it's half of that. So, it's going up, 5%, so times 0.3 is 1.5% impact on you, which is not insignificant. But, you are already, if you're an early stage brand, likely wasting, a handful of 1.5%, that you can get back. And that's either through, if your co-man is ordering your ingredients, but they're not being transparent with what your costs are, that's a real problem. You need to have your co-man be transparent with you so that you're, if he's not and they're not willing to be, you need to switch co-man, because that's just not cool. to not share with it. They should be willing to share their COGS and their profit margin. And even if it's a pass-through item, they should make a profit margin, on that. And if they're not willing to share that with you, I guarantee you got 10 points worth of opportunity in there. Also, I'm encouraging people, if you're close to being able to go from a sleeved can, for example, to a painted can, and you can make that move, then it's one less step, one less thing that has to be imported, one less thing, and you're right there with from a can standpoint, a painted can. So it's kind of about just intermediating certain of the ingredients to basically get that cost back. I'd like to think that in the end, these will be conceded on the other sides, but we don't know it, right? So, but if you do, I know some people that are absolutely petrified about it, and use it as an opportunity to find sources in the U.S. because anything supplement related or powder related or stuff like that, I really don't like to buy from China anyway. So even if there's, from a quality standpoint, I mean, I've been served like 8 times the level that you're supposed to get of huperzine because it just came in with a much bigger quantity than it was supposed to. So like there's just some real concerns with some of that stuff. So I'm concerned about it, but on the list of top 10 concerns, it doesn't come up there for me. There's other opportunities that you have to be able to take. Now, if your business is heavily that, and that's going to have a huge impact on you, then that's different. But if you're like most people, it's not that. You're talking about 1.5 points.
Yeah. No, I'm going to pivot to Will in a second here, but a couple things to mention is when looking at lost my train of thought. So Will, let's go to you. So as far as the tariffs go, what are you thinking? I've just remembered my question with packaging, right? So with packaging, looking at, a lot of packaging, let's say, comes from China, right? We got, whether it's bottles, plastic, sleeves, maybe Korea, maybe other countries. If you're sourcing packaging from China, would you recommend to pivot and find a different country to make the packaging? Because that seems to be a raw material that can be made elsewhere. We're not talking about a food item that specifically comes from a certain region. We're talking about packaging here. What are your thoughts on that? And do you have any advice for any entrepreneurs out there?
Me on the packaging?
Just for Will. Yeah, this is for Will. Yeah,
I'm not a packaging expert, but I can just say, like tariffs are COGS. They just are. And you have to be very unemotional about it. But you have to assume that tariffs, we're all hoping tariffs come down, but your base case needs to be that they won't. And so that is a new COGS structure. It just is what it is. And so no sense in crying about it. Like that's your new COGS. And if you can shift your supply chain to, I don't know, let's say you're a plant protein company and you can shift your supply to India or Indonesia or Vietnam or Thailand or what have you, great, do that, right? Like that is, that's probably a smart thing to do to get your COGS lower, but like it's just sort of is what it is. I do think it's very contextual to different brands. So like to Jeff's point, if you're a supplement company, well, it just so happens that China makes like pretty much all the minerals that we consume in this country, or they're processed there. There's also many things that just aren't grown in China, but they're processed there. So Canadian peas are shipped to China, where China just is the best at creating pea protein from that raw input from Canada, and then is shipped back because they invested in the manufacturing capabilities. And actually, in my experience, the quality is better. Like I think sometimes there's a reason iPhones are made in China, right? It's actually the quality is better at the highest level. There's a certain tier that is not good, right? The huperzine being 6x what it should be, but at the higher levels, it's phenomenally good manufacturing. That's why they're so successful. But I would look at packaging the same as I would look at like anything. You have to, it's like a quality, cost, risk level analysis. You have to create a model around it and then make the best decision for product quality as it relates to price. Like there's no free lunch. You can't get everything, right? So usually you're going to have to trade something off. And so it's just a question of what you're trading off.
Yeah. And I think the transparency is also really key. I'm going to pivot to Steve in a second, where when you're dealing with suppliers, and this happens whenever there's a major catastrophe, whether it's COVID, and now we're, or a major event, I should say, whether it's COVID, whether it's tariffs, certain suppliers, not naming any, are going to use that as a catalyst to charge you more. Like they're basically forward charging you, saying things are uncertain, maybe sales might go down, and because of all this, we need to raise your price. And I think like I would recommend, if I were in your shoes and you're hearing from a supplier, to push back and really try to get some transparency, right? And say, okay, are you raising the price because your costs went up, or because you're afraid that your costs will go up, or your next order will go up, or you're just uncertain and you're scared, so you're raising the price? And that's where negotiation comes in, to kind of press harder with your suppliers to keep the cost the same, or hopefully negotiate it down. It happened to us with Genius Juice, where during the pandemic, our container costs, and I'm not an econometrician, I don't know I don't know all the details of this, but our container costs bringing in coconut went from 3,000 to 25,000, literally overnight, like overnight. And a lot of people relate to that and resonate that it happened to you too. But you kind of question, okay, how much of that was the true, passing on the cost, and how much of that was, this is a worldwide challenge, and we're just uncertain, and we're just going to jack up the price as an excuse, right? And so I think a lot of brands get caught in that, and it affects your COGS and your margin. And so one thing I learned from Genius Juice is you got to be fucking fierce. Like you got to really push hard and really negotiate, and don't just take their word for it, right? And it's not like they're liars. It's not that they're bad people, but sometimes people do things under pressure or when they're emotional that could hurt you as it relates to margin and cost. But
and also, Alex, if you push up your price, let's say you go from $2.99 to $3.19 or $3.29, have you really achieved anything by doing that? Because you're definitely going to get a little bit more, a few more pennies for what you sell, but you're also going to have some impact on your volume by drifting above that price, that price cliff of $3. And you just have to be careful that we're not used to, CPG brands in general aren't used to getting price increases. And I think, people did get some price increases, throughout, the COVID and throughout over the last few years. And, largely because the big companies have taken price. But that doesn't mean that you're necessarily in a strategic position. If you're sitting at, $3.28, for a bottle or something, and, you were at $2.99 and your costs have gone up, but, have you made the market smaller that you're going after by the price point? I mean, I'm a pretty firm believer that, you can be a little bit higher if you've got reasons to be higher, but you can't be, you don't want to be more than 10%, 15% high.
Yeah, I remember the growth of Suja. I mean, this is pre-everything, right? Pre-pandemic, pre-inflation.
Yeah.
I remember reading an article in BevNet where you were interviewed, and you were talking about the new line for Suja, the scale driver line, right? I think it was at $2.99 or $3.99, something like that. And you firmly believed, which was the right call, that it has to be at this price or lower to get the volume we need to get the margin, and also to eventually sell this brand, right, to someone else, right?
Or to have anybody in the outside of the coast buy it, I mean, because the coastal areas, will buy it because those are the trendy areas. But, where most of America is, in middle America, they're not going to pay $10 for a bottle of juice. I mean, maybe some will at Whole Foods, but there's no Air One. That's why when people use Air One which I love Air One. I think they're a great retailer. But they're not really a justifier that you've got proof of concept, because most people do well at high prices in Air One because that's really the clientele that they have.
Yeah,
it's not reflective of Kroger in Middle America. Right.
Yeah, take a trip to Riverside if you're in California, or look around Ohio, Midwest, Texas, parts of Florida. So going to Steve, because I know we want to get back to you on some things. Are you just bracing for anything at this point, or I guess it's business as usual? Do you have any upcoming strategies on growth? Are you looking at continuing in the kind of the food service channel? Do you want to go more into retail? Without revealing too much, I'm curious about your don't want you to open up the curtain too much, but are you adjusting any retail strategy or distribution strategy going forward with your brand?
Nah, I don't want to talk about it. We have a lot of good things coming. Just more business as usual. That's all I'll say.
Okay, fair enough.
Actually, maybe this will throw someone off. We're gonna go into RTD. Big RTD push coming from Tenzo.
There you go. I just wanted to get something out of you, without revealing too much. Cool. Okay, so what's next? What shall we talk about here? Let's see. Let's go to the
open mic night.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, actually, we're out of time. That saved by the bell, because I was looking at new questions to ask. So we're not doing an open mic night with that lime green mic. I'm sorry. So let's go. We'll see. So let's go to our trivia question here, because we're at the top of the hour. And see, when Wade's not here, I lose all track of time. And I'm going to come up with a question real quick so we can end on time, because I know some people have hard stops at 1 o'clock, which is what, and the prize, by the way, 2 things to mention. We have our sponsor for this episode, which is Robert Kogan with Powerful Energy Distribution, and they help get your product into Canada. He's an expert at it, been doing it for, I think, 18 years at this point. And he is an expert at making sure your brand will survive and thrive in Canada. Make sure to reach out to Robert Kogan, who's doing a lot of comments here. Thanks for participating, Robert. And just LinkedIn message him. So the prizes, 2 prizes. There's going to be a variety pack of the IQ bar, generously donated by Will. And it's Will Nitze, right? Okay, someone asked earlier. Absolutely. Someone asked earlier, like, is that how you pronounce his name, his last name? And
it's like Portia
Nitze. And then also Steve is going to be what are you giving away?
We're doing a essential matcha kit. So everything you need to make matcha at home, a nice branded glass tumbler, and then some ceremonial matcha from Kagoshima, Japan.
Wow. I want to win that one. Okay. So those are the 2 prizes. The first 2 answers on the board, sounds like Family Feud, will get the prizes. So the question is going to be, what school did Steve go to?
Come on, someone's got to get this. Who has the easier option?
Usually there's like a delay, and then everything just kind of comes in at once. Which school did Steve go to? And you got some kind of a program there, right? Something.
Yep. It's in Los Angeles.
And it's a university.
Yeah. It's not a, this is an actual, there it is. So Greg Collins got it. Now one more answer, and Justin got it. So email cpgvibes100@gmail.com, and you can claim your prize. Now you just got to tell us which one you want. So Greg or Justin, just grab whatever you want first, or email us what you want. And then whoever grabbed that one, the next one will be available for the other winner. So
also, shout out to Greg Collins. He's actually an investor in Tenzo, very close ally of mine, and has helped us out a lot over the years. So Greg, you're the man.
So he cheated, is what you're saying.
Inside information.
He cheated. He knew. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, and also on top of that, he has plenty of Tenzo, and now he wants more. He's winning more. So
yep.
He probably already has that kit, I bet.
Yeah, he's got what we call the green card, where he just needs to text me and he gets whatever he wants.
Love that. Man, I want to get on that list. All right, so Greg, I think I'm going to do the liberty here. So I'm going to give Greg the IQ bar, okay, since he has a lot of Tenzo already. Then Justin, you will get the Tenzo stuff. All right, so thank you guys for being on. Will Nitze, IQ bar. Jeff Church with DreamMakers. Make sure to check out his accelerator cohort program. Message him, dreammakershq.com. And then Steve, so first time on here. Thanks for joining us, my man. And we will see you all next week at the usual time. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, guys,
Thanks,
for being
everybody.
on.
Thanks, Alex. Good seeing you guys.